The word iconic gets bandied around in this industry, often without justification, but surely no caravan deserves the description more than the iconic Airstream. But of course, nothing in this world is immune to change, and there are a couple of details on this particular Airstream that tells you it's something a little bit different. This badge, for example, tells you that this caravan is a UK-specific Airstream, and it's being distributed by the Swift Group, after being out of the market for a little while, following the decision of previous importer Adventure Leisure Vehicles to stop bringing it in. There's another badge in here that's quite interesting too. This van has got NCC approval, which means that you can buy it through a conventional caravan dealer with all of the relevant warranties and CRIS registration. So should it get stolen, and let's face it, it's a pretty desirable thing, hopefully it will be easier to recover. Now there's the odd detail on this van that you might recognise, things like a gas barbecue point, but on the whole it really is like no other caravan in the UK. We've got a roll-out awning, for example, and that wraps around a body that's made of riveted aluminium with these fantastic extruded aluminium window frames. And at the back, well, we've got a really automotive look that stretches right down to having a boot, just like a car. We pop these two, and it's massive because it stretches all the way back under the fixed bed at the rear of the van. Now, being made all of metal, albeit relatively lightweight aluminium, as you might expect, this is a pretty hefty caravan. It sits on a heavy-duty BPW chassis. Even this Missouri, the baby of the range on a single axle, weighs in at 1,825 kilos when laden. Its big brothers, the Yukon and the Colorado, weigh in at 2.4 tons or more, so they are going to need very hefty tow cars. Now, there's no doubting that this is a pretty spectacular looking caravan on the outside, but does that translate to an amazing interior as well? And indeed it is. And in fact, throughout this van, from the minute you step aboard, you'll find little details to charm you. Things like the built-in step, I always love seeing those. And how about this for a door fly screen? It's fantastically substantial and handmade. And then there's the door itself, which is more like the door you'd find in a vintage aircraft than a caravan. Now check out this lounge area. It really is extremely comfortable and quite spacious. This is the social hub of this Airstream. Now, do you remember Desperate Dan in the Dandy? Because I think he's given up his shirt for these cushions and curtains. And this one appears to be made from the leftovers of his cow pie. I must say I really do like this upholstery. Check out that stitching down there. It looks a bit like a baseball glove, and it's called Americana. If it's a bit too much for you, well, there are two no-cost options. There's the Manhattan in black leather, which does look rather like a gentleman's club, or Impala fabrics. But frankly, I think if you're going for an Airstream, why not go the whole hog for the full fat American experience? It looks pretty fantastic. At night, you simply push down this table, and this area turns from this lounge into a large double bed, and it's pretty comfortable too. As for storage options, well, there is space underneath the sofas, but not perhaps as much as you might expect. That's because you'll find the boiler for the Aldi wet central heating system under that side, and under me here, well, we've got an onboard water tank. There is further space overhead, however, in these sliding open lockers. Although quite why you want to see the contents of them through that perspex, I'm not entirely sure. Just in front of that lounge area, we've got this sideboard unit. Perfect place to put your telly, of course. And that's where we see the first of the Swift additions to this van, with these rather familiar looking sockets, and indeed the controller for the Aldi wet central heating mounted just above. Beneath, there's a proper Dometic fridge freezer, which is again a Swift addition. Swift gets these vans ready built in from the States with their interiors fully fitted, and it plumbs them, puts in electrics and puts in the soft furnishings. That does mean it can't do a huge amount about some of the build quality issues with this van, such as the finish inside this cupboard. But then I'm not sure that buyers mind too much. It's a little bit like British buyers buying a Morgan. There's a very good reason why it's got a long waiting list, despite the fact that it's not at the cutting edge of technology. People want them because of the way it makes them feel. And it's the same for Airstream. Behind the sideboard here, well, there's a decent sized wardrobe. As for the rest of the kitchen, well, for that, we have to head over here to the off side of the van. And what a kitchen it is, starting right at the top with these work surfaces. They're Korean and they're really fantastic quality. They're also really heavy, as you can tell from this sink cover. It's not hard to see where the weight is in this van. And check out that sink while we're here. It's massive. It's a German Franke unit and it's really rather fantastic. Alongside it, well, there's a Dometic 3-burner hob and a combined oven and grill. I must say, for the rather heady price tag associated with this van, you might have expected a separate oven and grill, but hey ho. If we check out beneath the work surface, there's loads of storage options and yet more examples of why this van weighs so much. This hugely over-engineered oak cutlery tray is rather fabulous, but kind of bonkers in a tourer. There's more storage overhead with a couple more of those Perspex overhead cupboards. Amazingly, there's a really large amount of room here for the chef to get to work. And I say amazingly because actually on the other side of the van, that's where you'll find the bathroom. There's a change of ambience in the washroom with its lime green walls and a shower tray for the floor. You'll find more classy Korean for the shelf and sink unit. And overhead, there's an Orbit shower head. There are a few neat details in here too, such as the soap dispenser and a cover for your loo roll. At the very back of the van here, you'll find the main bed, and very comfy it is too. It's a bespoke duvet mattress designed just for the Airstream, and it really is very soft indeed. There's a couple of reading lights back here and a magazine rack, and at first sight, however, there's nowhere to put a cup of tea. But all I need to do is pop down this flap, and there you go, storage for your tea and your books, or indeed for your TV, because there's a second TV point here with 12-volt and aerial sockets. Underneath the bed, of course, there's that massive amount of storage, and although you can't lift up the bed to access it, there are a couple of little doors to help you do so underneath me. However, I have found one flaw. You know, in a fixed near-side bed arrangement, if you're tucked over against the window, it's quite hard to get out without waking up your partner. Well, what about here? If you're on the window side of this, you've got to stand up and climb right over. Of course, the one thing we haven't mentioned so far is price. And that's because it's really very, very high. Prices are likely to start from in excess of 75 grand, with top spec models topping out at more than 90. That's an awful lot of money to pay for a van that doesn't even have the spec level of Swift's own elegance. That said, I'm not sure it entirely matters. If you want to buy an Airstream, you'll buy an Airstream, whatever the price tag. And I guess that Swift directors will be taking champagne in the boardroom if they manage to sell more than 60 in the first year. I think what the Airstream's going to do that's perhaps more important is bring people onto the forecourts that might never have previously even looked at a caravan. And in doing that, it'll be doing the whole industry a favour.